The Avatar Chronicles 1 Return of the Avatar. Episode 3.
Chapter 2. Gabriel's Story. Love. Poughkeepsie, New York. The present. Sunset fell on the battlefield. The medieval battle reenactment was over. Lord Gabriel Dane's forces had defeated those of Lord Robert Darrington's after a fierce 3-hour battle. As the members for the Society for Creative Anachronism, SCA, sat down to a medieval banquet in their finest noble attire, they began to talk about best-selling science fiction and fantasy novelist Gabriel Dane's latest novel.
"A toast to Lord Dane for a hard-fought victory,"
said John, as he raised his wine goblet. Everyone else raised their goblet in response.
"Gabriel, I must say that I was not expecting that last disarming maneuver. Most impressive,"
said Robert.
"By the way, I heard that the first book in your new fantasy series, The Avatar Chronicles, reached #1 on every bestsellers list in its first week of release. 2 million hardcover copies? At this pace, I think it'll outsell your Time Lord series."
So, how did you come up with the idea for your new book series?
Asked Henry. Gabriel Dane paused for a moment before answering.
For the last 9 months, I've been having these strange dreams about a realm named New Britannia. It seems so real to me, as if I've actually been there,
said Gabriel.
Come on, quit joking, Gabriel,
said Sarah.
You probably came up with that idea over drinks at the Foxfire Club.
So, Gabriel, any truth to the rumours that you're currently dating supermodel Alexandra Covington?
Asked Brian.
No,
answered Gabriel, as he touched the white gold ink pendant dangling from his neck.
You know that Shannon was the only love of my life.
Gabriel suddenly thought back to when his late wife had given him the pendant as a 4th anniversary gift following a romantic candlelit dinner in their suite at Ashford Castle in County Galway, Ireland.
But Shannon has been dead for 3 years,
said Brian.
Don't you think it's about time for you to move on?
As Gabriel looked at the Irish claddagh ring on his finger, he remembered the first time that he and Shannon met. Gabriel had been on a book tour of the United Kingdom to promote the 13th and final book in his Time Lord series, The Death of a Time Lord. After wrapping up the book tour, Gabriel had decided to spend a couple of days taking in the sights of Cardiff, Wales. As a VIP member of famed Irish mezzo-soprano Shannon Donohue's fan club, he had been one of the 24 lucky fans chosen at random for a meet and greet with Shannon, following her concert that evening at Cardiff International Arena. When it was Gabriel's turn to have her sign a photo for him, their eyes locked, and it truly was love at first sight. Later that evening, they met for drinks and talked long into the night about their interests, their hopes, and their dreams. 1 year later, they were married in a lavish wedding ceremony at Ashford Castle in County Galway, Ireland. At the wedding, one of Gabriel's friends, Charles Whittaker, Professor of Irish Studies at the University of Notre Dame, noted that Gabriel was a very lucky fellow because Shannon was a striking beauty who bore an uncanny resemblance to Bridget, the Celtic goddess of fire, water, and healing. Gabriel had dated many beautiful actresses and models before he met Shannon, but all those relationships were shallow and short-lived. Shannon was different. She truly was Gabriel's soulmate. The 5 short years they had together were the happiest days of Gabriel's life. Jessica saw the sad look in her dear friend Gabriel's eyes. Jessica had known Gabriel since their freshman year at New York University 22 years ago. They had even dated briefly, but soon discovered that they made better friends than lovers. Jessica knew that Gabriel had never really been the same since losing his wife, Shannon, to lung cancer. The best doctors in the world couldn't figure out how someone in excellent physical condition could suddenly develop stage 4 lung cancer and decline so rapidly. The doctors had been unable to identify the pathogen, other than the fact that it appeared to be extraterrestrial in nature. Shannon died 3 months after her initial diagnosis. As Gabriel's closest friend, Jessica had been one of the few people with him at Shannon's bedside as she passed away. Jessica shot Brian an accusatory glance, and then tried to defuse the situation by quickly changing the subject.
Honestly, Gabriel, I don't see how you have any time to write these days in light of your blossoming pop career,
said Jessica.
Your debut album, Shadows and Light, has been #1 on the pop album chart for, 8 weeks now, and 10 million copies sold? Every time I turn on the radio, I hear your single, Song of Love. Oh, and all I ever hear from my teenage stepdaughter Lori and her friends these days is, who is that sexy masked Nightshadow fellow?
Everyone laughed.
Gabriel, you are a true Renaissance man. Author, singer, songwriter, martial artist, armourer, and swordsmith,
said Morgan.
Is there anything you can't do?
Gabriel was about to respond when suddenly a lunar rift appeared a few feet behind him. As the shocked diners looked on, a tendril of white energy emerged from the rift and pulled him in. In the confusion, the other diners failed to notice that Jessica smiled as her eyes briefly glowed.
I hope you find what you're looking for in New Britannia, Gabriel,
she whispered to herself. The lunar rift deposited him on a grassy field. Gabriel got up and looked around. He saw a lone white dove soaring overhead. Suddenly there was a slight breeze, and Gabriel noticed a skull lying at his feet. He picked it up and was instantly flooded with memories from the final battle with Lord Shadow Raine 40 years ago. Gabriel quickly dropped the skull and staggered back.
Where am I?
Said Gabriel.
This looks like Falura Field in New Britannia, but that can't possibly be.
Gabriel suddenly felt a tingling sensation in his head and quickly turned around to face a 7.5-foot tall, highly muscular, bald warrior with a Van Dyke beard, who was wearing black studded leather armour with a skull-shaped belt buckle and wielding a massive 2-handed red battle axe, which had an eerie black glow. Gabriel could swear he heard the battle axe whisper,
"Feed me." "Ah, another avatar for me to kill,"
bellowed the warrior.
"Never let it be said that Malgor the Mighty wasn't fair. Pick up the sword and defend yourself."
Gabriel reached for the sword lying on the ground. Malgor the Mighty swung his massive battle axe directly at Gabriel's head. Gabriel tried to parry, but the force of the enchanted battle axe shattered his sword in half. Gabriel barely managed to dodge the next blow, thanks to the lightning-fast reflexes he had developed during his many years of martial arts training in the Far East. He quickly dropped the broken hilt and countered with a dragon fist punch, followed by a butterfly kick. Malgor was knocked back a short distance, but quickly recovered. Gabriel did a quick combat analysis. Malgor's armour prevented Gabriel from attacking his pressure points and paralysing him. Furthermore, Gabriel's powerful punches and kicks barely seemed to faze Malgor. The only vulnerable area seemed to be Malgor's unprotected head.
"Is that the best you've got?"
laughed Malgor.
"I've killed over 600 other potential avatars since I arrived here from Earth 6 months ago, and most of them were a lot tougher than you. No one can escape my Muramasa battle axe. PK's rule. In the end, there can be only one avatar."
Muramasa battle axe? How was that possible? Everyone knew that Muramasa was a famous swordsmith, Gabriel thought to himself, as Malgor swung his mighty battle axe at Gabriel's head again. Gabriel dodged the blow and countered with a phoenix eye strike to Malgor's temple. Malgor immediately coughed up blood, dropped his battle axe, and fell flat on his face, dead. Gabriel noticed that Malgor's corpse suddenly began losing muscle mass rapidly. Soon, his corpse reverted to its true 5-foot-tall, 130-pound form. Gabriel heard the battle-axe whisper to him,
"Take me."
He felt compelled to pick up the battle-axe and examine it. As soon as Gabriel grasped the battle-axe, he was instantly bombarded with images from the battle-axe's past. Despite its massive size, it did not feel heavier than a normal-sized one-handed axe. The handle had strange runes engraved in it, and there was a blood-red gem embedded at its base. Gabriel heard the battle-axe say,
"Feed me blood, and I will make you strong. Strong enough to defeat all your enemies."
"Do not try to tempt me, foul demon,"
said Gabriel.
"The battle axe has revealed the truth to me. Malgor's real name was Marvin Blatz, aka Hack and Slash, a professional video game player. You were simply using Marvin by preying on his bloodlust and his need to win at any cost. Once he decapitated his 666th victim, you would have been freed from your prison to wreak havoc on New Britannia. I will not let more innocent blood be spilled."
Gabriel's eyes suddenly turned bright white as he strongly gripped the battle-axe. Suddenly, the battle-axe was engulfed by white fire, which erupted from Gabriel's hands. Gabriel seemed unaffected by the flames, but the battle-axe screamed out in pain.
"Ah, the white fire burns! How dare you resist me? I am the Demon Lord Argax. I will not be defeated by a mere mortal."
The battle-axe began to glow bright white. Gabriel hurled the flaming battle-axe high into the air. The battle-axe screamed as it exploded. Gabriel's eyes reverted to their normal appearance. Gabriel's keen sense of hearing alerted him to the sudden presence of 3 hearts beating behind him, and he quickly turned around.
"Most impressive, Gabriel,"
said the elderly, white-bearded, robed figure standing in front of him.
"I've been expecting you. Allow me to introduce my assistant, Theodric, and my good friend Carlin."
The young monk, standing next to the old man, stared in awe at Gabriel as the small metal fragment in the palm of Nistel's right hand began to glow bright white. The archer, standing next to him, seemed intrigued by this turn of events. Suddenly, there was a flash of light, and the Avatar's Sword of Virtue appeared in Gabriel's hands. The sword suddenly began changing shape, transforming into the Masamune Dragon Katana. Being a highly skilled swordsmith himself, Gabriel marvelled at the level of craftsmanship. At the base of the golden blade was a circular handguard, comprised of 2 intertwined dragons, one red and one black. The red silk-wrapped hilt had a solid gold dragon's head pommel with red ruby eyes. Both of the red ruby eyes and the 8 runes of virtue engraved on the hilt began to glow, and Gabriel could swear that he heard a dragon roar emanate from the sword. Unbeknownst to anyone all across New Britannia, the 9 legendary dragons suddenly began to awake from their 40-year slumber. Upon opening his eyes in his underworld lair, the black dragon Kuroseth used the bond he shared with the members of the Nightshadow clan to appear to Gabriel in a vision, and said,
"Greetings, Gabriel Nightshadow. I am Kuroseth, one of the 9 legendary dragons. Long have I waited to renew the covenant with the last Dragon Lord."
At the abandoned ruins of Castle Jinnar, former base of operations for the 9 Dragon Lords, overlooking the cliffs of Avon, a strong gust of wind blew away the cobwebs in the main council chamber, as all of the torches throughout the castle suddenly lit up. Meanwhile, back at Falura Field, a startled and somewhat confused Gabriel sheathed the katana in the red lacquered scabbard which had suddenly appeared at his side. Everyone failed to notice that an image of Gabriel's late wife Shannon briefly appeared in his white gold ankh pendant as well.
Theodric, please fetch me the enchanted black plate armor we recovered from the crypt,
said Nistel.
You don't remember me, do you?
No. Have we met before?
Asked Gabriel.
Something's not right,
said a puzzled Nistel, as he reached out and touched Gabriel's forehead with the palm of his hand.
Someone's placed a mental block in your head in order to prevent you from remembering your past lives. Let me fix that.
Nistel's hand glowed for a moment, and then Gabriel was instantly flooded with memories from the past. He remembered that he and his fraternal twin brother Lucius had both held the rank of Primus Pilus, senior centurion of a Roman legion equivalent in rank to a lieutenant colonel today, in the Roman army, prior to being chosen by Lord Order and Lord Chaos to be their respective champions in their eternal battle. Gabriel had been reborn in many different bodies over the past 2,000 years, as were the companions who Lord Order had seen fit to grant him to aid in his never-ending battle with Lucius. In addition to Nistel, there were always 2 other male companions and a female companion as well. Nistel was different from the other companions because his form never changed, as he was immortal. The only thing which comforted Gabriel was discovering that, as he was constantly being reborn into new bodies, so too was his beloved wife Shannon. He looked forward to seeing her again in his next life, for they had so little time together in this one. The last recovered memory, which Gabriel had, was being handcuffed to a chair in a darkly lit room in an abandoned warehouse sometime in 1987. Seated across the table from him was a very tall, about 6'10", albino man with long white hair. He was dressed in the attire of a proper Victorian gentleman, with a red silk puff tie, black Bancroft double-breasted vest, and a black Victorian cutaway coat.
My master would prefer that I do a complete memory wipe of your mind, but it seems that your innate mental defenses are far stronger than I had anticipated,
said the tall albino man.
The best I can do is to place a mental block that will prevent you from remembering anything from your past lives.
As the tall albino man reached out toward Gabriel's forehead with his pale white hand, Gabriel said,
One day, I will find you, and I will make you pay for this.
You're welcome to try, but I highly doubt that's ever going to happen,
replied the tall albino man with a wicked smile on his face. The last thing Gabriel remembered seeing was the tall albino man's platinum diamond-encrusted ring on his outstretched hand. What was that symbol in the centre? Gabriel concentrated on the memory, and the blurry image came into focus. It was the symbol of chaos.
I remember everything,
exclaimed Gabriel as he gave Nistel a bear hug.
It's good to see you again, my old friend. What has transpired since we last met?
New Britannia is in grave peril. Lord British's half-brother, Lord Shadowrain, is preparing to attack this realm in 6 months' time with an alien invasion force he has gathered at the other end of the universe. Our only hope of stopping him is recovering the 9 fragments of the Amulet of Vazur and summoning the 9 dragons of legend. But this task will be very difficult, for Lord Shadowrain's minions are everywhere, including your brother Lucius.
Why am I not surprised?
Replied Gabriel.
Welcome home, Avatar,
said a smiling Nistel.
We have much work to do.
High above, the lone white dove happily cooed as its eyes briefly glowed. It turned and flew off toward the horizon.
At last, I am finally able to penetrate Nistel's cloaking field,
said the handsome dark-haired young nobleman as he peered into the scrying pool.
So, that's the new Avatar?
Yes, Duke Garen,
replied the fat, balding, middle-aged wizard Marek, who was standing to the right of him. Lucius, i.e. Duke Garin, immediately sensed his brother Gabriel's soul in this new form, but decided it was best not to let the others know about this fact, for these mere mortals knew nothing of their eternal battle.
I am not impressed,
replied a smirking Duke Garin. He turned to the beautiful red-haired young woman, clad in black leather armour and wielding a double-bladed sword, standing to his left. The young woman was the spitting image of Gabriel's late wife Shannon. Marek leered at the woman, while Duke Garin had his back turned to him.
Annies, take 24 of your best assassins and proceed to the Valley of the Fallen Heroes and ambush the Avatar and his companions as they pass through there. It is fitting that their final resting place should be among the tombstones of our ancestors,
commanded Duke Garin.
Bring me back the Avatar's body. Dispose of the others as you see fit.
Yes, my lord,
replied Anise. She pressed a button on the hilt of her double-bladed sword and twisted both halves of the hilt in opposite directions. The double-bladed sword separated into 2 single-bladed ones, which Anise placed in the tooth sheaths on her back. She bowed, turned around, and exited the room. No one noticed the flames which momentarily danced in her eyes. As Anise exited the room, she found her second-in-command, Lareth, waiting for her.
Assemble the Black Scorpion, Crimson Cobra, and Yellow Centipede squads,
said Anise.
Our master has given us a mission, and we must depart for the Valley of Fallen Heroes immediately.
Who's the target?
Asked Lareth.
Hopefully more of a challenge than the last one.
It's the new Avatar and his companions,
replied Anise. Lareth smiled.
Worthy foes indeed. Mistress Vala would have been proud to see what a fine job you've done as the leader of the Tekkari Sisterhood of Assassin these past 7 years,
she said, before turning around and hurrying down the staircase to the barracks. Anise followed shortly thereafter. Meanwhile, back in the chamber, Duke Garin waved his hand to dismiss Marek and turned back to observe the Avatar and his companions in the scrying pool.
And Marek, if I ever catch you looking at Annies like that ever again, I will make sure that you suffer horribly before I kill you,
said Duke Garin.
Annies is mine, and mine alone. Is that clear?
Duke Garin's eyes suddenly glowed bright red, and Marek suddenly was flung backward across the room. He hit the wall hard and crumpled to the floor.
Yes, my lord,
groaned Marek as he slowly got up and hobbled out of the room, grimacing in pain. Once Marek had departed, Duke Garin turned his attention back to the scrying pool. But suddenly the image of the Avatar and his companions faded away, as 2 large, glowing red eyes appeared in the now pitch-black water. A disembodied voice spoke to Duke Garin.
Do not underestimate the new Avatar. He may be untested, but I sense great power within him. He would not have been able to defeat my former servant Argax, were it not so,
said the voice.
I know, but even if Annies and her assassins fail to kill the Avatar, they will be greatly slowed down his process in obtaining the fragments of the Amulet of Azure,
replied Duke Garin.
Without Nistel to guide him, the new Avatar will not know what to do.
Indeed,
said the voice.
I have good news to report. Our support of the Home Guard has reaped enormous rewards. Marius has convinced a significant portion of the population that the Offworlders are invaders who pose a serious threat to our way of life. Many Avatars are now being killed on sight by Home Guard members as soon as they emerge from the lunar rifts. Even if Annies and her assassins fail, the new Avatar yet may be killed by the loyal Home Guard members or sympathizers,
said Duke Garin.
There is also growing dissension in the Great Council over Lord British's latest reforms. Lord British has reduced the tax rate on the commoners while increasing the tax rate on the nobility. He's been using the excess money to fund programs that benefit the commoners, increase food distribution to the poor, and construction of affordable housing and schools. He has also tried to reduce the power of the nobility by forcing them to contribute 25% of their personal troops to the royal army. The most vocal opponents of the reforms, the Dukes Gramont, Heron, and Jobin, have already joined our cause. With their support, we now have over 400,000 troops in New Britannia at our disposal.
Excellent,
replied the voice.
That, combined with the 600,000 troops that I have assembled in this realm, should be more than enough to defeat the troops loyal to Lord British. You have done well, my son. Lord British is a fool. He should have been paying more attention to what the nobility wanted, instead of trying to help the common people. Soon, I shall finally return to New Britannia and reclaim the throne from my weak and pathetic brother.
Lord Shadowrain's maniacal laugh echoed throughout the chamber. Duke Garin failed to notice the listening device attached to the skylight above the chamber. The young woman crouching on the roof pushed a button on her headset, and the device retracted itself. She turned her head, and it was apparent that she was the woman from Theodric's vision. The athletic, attractive, young, red-haired woman was clad in black leather armor with 2 swords strapped to her back.
Valley of Fallen Heroes. It looks like Nystile and the Avatar will need my help. Time to repay my debt to you, Nystile,
said Amber Raine. Amber turned and walked over to the edge of the balcony. She pulled out her grappling gun and fired a grappling hook line down to a tree located below. After tying the other end of the line to a chimney, she pulled out a leather strap and slung it over the line. After waiting for the guards down below to pass by on their patrol route, she slid down the line, landing behind the tree. Amber knew that her pet wolf, Moritura, and her black horse, Inferno, stood waiting for her behind the nearby hill. One of the guards sensed something was wrong and circled back to investigate the area near the tree. As he passed by the tree, Amber emerged behind him and choked him until he fell to the ground unconscious. Propping his unconscious body up behind the tree, Amber quickly scanned the area for other guards. Seeing none, she made her way over the hill, then mounted her horse. As she, Inferno, and Moritura rode off, the explosives which she had planted in the castle's weapons storage shed began to detonate. Chaos erupted, as the sharp weapons stored there became deadly projectiles, impaling many of the soldiers scrambling to put out the fires. Back in Jural, 2 burly men dragged a blindfolded Mingo into the warehouse and shoved him into a chair. Mingo's hands were bound with enchanted, hand-forged iron shackles, which prevented him from using magic or his innate abilities. One of the men removed his blindfold. A mysterious, black, hooded figure entered the room. The 2 burly German men turned and left. As soon as Mingo heard the man's voice, his eyes grew wide, and he began sweating profusely.
"No, it can't be. The Nightmare Man,"
whispered Mingo. The tall albino man removed his hood and smiled.
"Ah, I see you remember me from our last encounter, Mingo,"
he said.
"Your cousin Nystile isn't around to rescue you this time. Tell me where he is."
"No, I will never betray my cousin,"
replied a defiant Mingo.
"We'll see about that," ha 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 ha,
laughed the tall albino man as his eyes began to glow. Mingo started singing,
"I'm a little teapot, short and stout,"
and prayed that the tall albino man wouldn't cause too much damage to his mind this time. Lord British and Fire Lotus were having afternoon tea on the balcony of the castle when they both spotted the flash of light from nearby Falura Field.
"That flash of light,"
said Fire Lotus.
"I wonder what it means."
"It means that the new avatar has been revealed,"
replied Lord British.
"It seems Nystile was right after all."
"This is good news, my liege, because the next lunar eclipse is due to occur in 6 months,"
said Fire Lotus.
"I hope that the new avatar will be ready by then."
"Me too,"
replied Lord British.
"The fate of New Britannia lies in the avatar's hands."
"Well, I must be returning to my tavern to prepare for the evening crowd. Thank you for the afternoon tea, my liege,
said Fire Lotus.
My pleasure. You know how much I enjoy our daily conversations,
replied Lord British.
The castle seems so empty while Lady Arabella is away visiting her relatives in Giral. I've been so busy these days that I haven't had a chance to catch up with any of our other old friends.
Then you really must stop by the tavern this evening. David will be making a rare appearance and performing some of his new songs,
said Fire Lotus.
I will definitely be stopping by the tavern tonight. It will give David and I a chance to reminisce about the good old days, catch up on current events, and honor those who are no longer with us. It also gives me a reason to sample some of this new Fire Mountain Ale I've heard so much about. Is it really as good as they say?
Asked Lord British.
Indeed it is, my liege. Demand has been so high, I've had trouble keeping it in stock. That my next shipment of Fire Mountain Ale isn't due to arrive until the middle of next week. But don't worry, I do still have a bit of it left in my private stock, for both of you to sample,
replied Fire Lotus.
Excellent,
said Lord British.
I look forward to it.
Fire Lotus departed. As soon as she left, Lord British went to the library room. He searched one of the bookcases for the Book of Aramis. After making certain that no one else was around, he pulled on the book, and a hidden doorway was revealed. He walked down the stairs to a secret laboratory filled with strange equipment, powered by Tesla generators. He walked over to the vertical healing pod and peered through the translucent case where the real Lord British stood in suspended animation. The imposter looked at the computer readout next to the pod. It said, Healing cycle, 99% complete. Time remaining, 179 days, 23 hours, 55 minutes, 30 seconds.
Rest well, my son. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you when you were growing up, but I'm here for you now. You've accomplished far more in your lifetime than any of my other children. I'm so proud of you. Your people will have need of you again soon. I will continue to watch over them until you are ready to return to us,
said the imposter, as he began changing into his true form, that of Barak of the old gods. Several hours later, Mingo finally lost consciousness. The tall albino man was physically exhausted from his attempt to penetrate Mingo's mental defences. The two burly German men returned. Hans, the taller of the two, spoke.
Master, were you able to extract any information from him?
He asked.
Yes, although his mental defenses have gotten much stronger since our last encounter,
replied a very exhausted tall albino man.
At first he tried to confuse me with some nonsense about a lizard named Kriskar, some adventurers named Jeb, Ed, Lyra, Shania, armored squirrels, talking penguins, and some red hat and blue hat gnomes.
Gnomes?
Said the shorter one, Gunther.
Didn't they all die out long ago? No one really knows for sure, little brother,
replied Hans.
But it's been ages since one has been sighted.
Gunther then made the mistake of saying,
It was good to see your sister Vestra again, Master. She's so hot.
The tall albino man became very angry, and his eyes began glowing again.
Do not talk about my precious Vastra like that,
he shouted, as Gunther suddenly began having trouble breathing. As Gunther began gasping for air, his brother Hans said,
Please forgive my brother, Master. He is still young and often speaks without thinking. I am sure he meant no disrespect. Isn't that right, Gunther?
Gunther nodded, as his face began to turn blue.
Very well, I will forgive you this time, Gunther,
said the tall albino man, as his eyes stopped glowing, and the colour began to return to Gunther's face.
But if you ever speak of Vastra like that again, you will die. Do you understand?
Yes, Master,
stammered Gunther.
Thank you for sparing my life.
Take Mingo and teleport back to Owl's Head. Dump him at Fire Lotus Tavern and then return here,
said the tall albino man.
We will intercept Nistel and his companions in the Magassa forest.
At once, Master,
said Hans and Gunther. Hans and Gunther picked up the unconscious Mingo and carried him away. Later that same evening, Duke Garin entered a secret chamber underneath his castle, bearing a bloody sacrificial dagger and a black bowl adorned with demonic images. A well-preserved skeleton lay on a stone slab in the centre of the chamber. Duke Garin placed the dagger on the corner of the slab. As the clock struck midnight, Duke Garin poured fresh, virgin female blood from the bowl on the bones and cast an ancient, forbidden, dark magic spell. Red smoke formed around the corpse, and muscles, veins, and skin quickly began to grow on the bones. When the resurrection process was complete, the bald man opened his eyes and sat up. Duke Garin handed the man a black robe to wear.
How long have I been dead?
Inquired the man.
A very long time. Hundreds of years,
replied Duke Garin.
Why did you bring me back?
Asked the man.
I have need of a highly competent general to command my troops in my upcoming war with Lord British,
replied Duke Garin.
Would you be interested in the job?
Yes, very much so. I must pay back my old friend for killing me in that magic duel,
said the man.
Revenge shall be mine.
Excellent. Welcome back, Lord Blackstorm,
said Duke Garin with an evil grin on his face.
No, Lord Blackstorm is dead,
said the man.
From now on, call me Lord DarkStarr.
Sir Stile Teckel presents The Avatar Chronicles 1, Return of the Avatar, directed and produced by Lord Baldrith. Writer and music supervisor Gabriel Nightshadow. Casting director and court jester Time Lord. Assistant casting director and director of public relations Raine. Cast appearing in this episode: Stephen J. Goldman as John, Thornrage as Robert, Asclepius as Henry, Morgan, Brian, Malgor the Mighty, Demon Lord Argax, Kuroseth, and Lord DarkStarr. Joe Garrity as Gabriel Nightshadow, Elizabeth as Sarah, Dame Laurie as Jessica, Lord Baldrith as Nistel and Mingo, Trennick as the tall albino man, Duke Gregor as Duke Garin, Chips 36 as Marek, Indy Martin as Anise, Cammy as Lareth, Static Grazer as The Voice, Amber Raine as Amber Raine, Little Geek Lost as Fire Lotus, Sir Cabarrus as Hans and Gunther, with Cypher Esmad as Lord British and Barak of the Old Gods, and starring Asclepius as the Great Story Weaver. Music credits for this episode: Enchanted Festival by Matthew Pablo at www.matthewpablo.com. Ireland's Coast Game Edition Live Players by Matthew Pablo at www.matthewpablo.com. Heroism by Edward J. Blakely at www.opengameart.org. Conquerors by Alexander Zelenov at www.opengameart.org. Tower of Great Lords by Alexander Zelenov at www.opengameart.org. Dream Raid Full Version Mockup by Matthew Pablo at www.matthewpablo.com. The King's Crowning by Teleron at www.opengameart.org. Radakan Old Crypt by Jan Hanhusuanto for Radakan at www.opengameart.org. Covert Operations by Artistic Dude at www.opengameart.org. Winds of Stories by Horrorpen at www.opengameart.org. The Path Revealed by Elliot Corley at www.opengameart.org. Melvin and Waldorf by Joe Reynolds, Professor Lamp at www.jrtheories.webs.com. Colossal Boss Battle Theme by Matthew Pablo at www.matthewpablo.com. Stay tuned for the next and final episode in this enthralling saga.